Welcome back for this summer challenge on Facebook group. If it's the first time you're joining the lives, just let me know that I can greet you properly. And if you're coming back, welcome back. I've been having a hard time to find the topics that needs to be discussed because there is a lot of things I'm reflecting on. And today I think I want to address how we function as individuals in living in society. I see a lot on social media, a lot of people being concerned about what's going on in the world, in different countries, different continents. And every time I hear something like that, I'm always thinking they don't understand what matters. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter at all. It means we lose the focus on what truly matters. We lose the focus on what we can do to create change, and we lose the focus on where the individual power lies. And so we see a lot of protest, a lot of movements around complaining, protesting, something is wrong, something is not going well, something is not right. And it generates a lot of emotion, and because the emotional contagion creates emotion on top of emotion on top of emotion, it is enough of one person to be mad, one person to be angry, to create a second person, and 3 and 4, and create more anger and more pain in a way. And so what I see happening is exactly this, is that there is one person that gets a power and high emotion around anger and hate, and the emotional contagion does the job. But we never see in titles, in big news, we never see what we want to create, what kind of relationship we want to have with others, to create something, to collaborate. How do we want to use our relationships to build and not to destroy? And where I understand there is the necessity of creating a structure and authority and some guidelines and rules in order for living in as a society to function properly, to not be in chaos and anarchy. As I understand this, I also see that it's being misused in a way that we go from an extreme to another. And by going to from an extreme to another, we create resistance, we create rebellion. Instead of trying to find the middle ground, to find a balance in between, to reflect on what is possible as a compromise. But people very rarely want to compromise. And it's not because they don't want to, it's also because they haven't learned to. Because they confused, they've learned that compromising comes with sacrificing, and nobody wants to sacrifice anything. And so we haven't learned to compromise, we haven't learned to find a middle ground, to work as a group, to use each individual's strength and power to create more power. And so it becomes emotional contagion around anger and pain and hate and destruction, rather than discussion, reflection, mastermind, building something. And so my invitation is for you to, whenever you feel the high emotion of hate and anger popping up because you've seen something in the news, because you've been told something that is unfair and harmful, or because you see that a according to your judgment, according to your values and your belief, something happening is not the right thing, that could harm people, that's not fair, injustice. When you feel reacting to those things, I would really invite you to step back from it and making the conscious choice to not get into the emotional contagion. Making the conscious choice to not feed that contagious anger or hate that will ultimately come to destruction. So once you've made a choice, is also to see, well, if I'm not participating to that, what do I do? What can I do? And that's where we have to ask ourselves the right questions. What can we build to be more constructive about it? It's not what do we need to destroy. There is a big difference in the vibrational of the words and in the frequency of the ideas, from I have to destroy that system, I have to destroy that process, and what can I build more than that? What can I build different than that? It's a very different wording, and the words are different. The sound of that is different as well. And so what I see most of the time whenever I plugged in the news is that people are focused on destroying a system they're disagreeing with. They're focusing on destroying a system they judge being needs to be overridden. They want to destroy a system they don't want to deal with anymore, that they feel limiting, that they feel belongs to the past. We talk about the old paradigm. Many people want to destroy a system that represents an old paradigm, patriarchism. They want to destroy a lot of models that are around traditional family, a lot of symbol of authority. But very rarely do I hear people asking, what do I want to build if not that? Where do I want to go if not that? And so we hear a lot of groups of movement going against something, to want to destroy a system, to deconstruct a system. But nobody communicate what they want to build instead of that. And with all the respect I have, it's a topic we will need to discuss at some point or another and that I talk about with my clients privately too. But it's all the movement that are going around the gay pride and the movement around that sphere. When we ask, define what you want, define who you are, what you want, nobody knows a specific answer, because they don't know. They know what they don't want. They know they don't want to identify with a binary system. They don't want to identify with a traditional system, but nobody knows where they want to go, what they want to create instead. And so the confusion lies into, I want the freedom of choice and of being, but in a system that still requires some guidelines and structure in order to billions of humans to live in some harmony, in order to not generate chaos and anarchy. Because a world where everybody would be doing exactly what they want, how they want, regardless of anybody else, that would be chaotic. So we need to find a way where we can respectfully be each of us, create something that we desire, all along having this structure with guidelines in order to respect and harmony between humans. That's that's a big topic to discuss, and I feel more and more it's popping up, more and more it needs to be addressed, more and more it needs to be discussed, because we see right on top of the nose, we don't see the big picture. And when I see usually the big pictures, I see the ripple effect of every single action. And so my message for today is really screening for our life and seeing where am I having the tendency to protest against something, to want to deconstruct a system, to want to destroy a pattern that doesn't work for me anymore. But instead of asking myself, well, this is interesting, I disagree with this system now, I disagree with this belief, with this pattern, with this way of doing things, but how would I do it differently then from now on? How do I want things to be? What would I build differently? And so I would invite you, more than focusing on deconstructing something, which is necessary many times, I would invite you to also focus on, if you want to deconstruct something, then can you focus on what you want to build? All right, I'll let you with that thought. I'll let you journal about it, contemplate it, think about it. If with our discussions you feel it's time for you to have together, you have different options. A newsletter, I develop more in the newsletter usually. I also have the podcast whereas the season 2 is ending next week. So I'll post during the summer. And if you want really to dive deeper, if you want to go into conversation and figure out how to build a relationship that allow really to thrive, you personally, to thrive in your family, to thrive as a person, to thrive in every single relationship in your home, at work, and living in society, to not fear living in society anymore, then the Clarity Call are exactly the space for it. So you can just contact me for it or check on my website. I'll leave it to you here, and I talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.